folks at Jinko Fishing are not only bringing you the Low Budget Live podcast these days, they want to bring you, the low lifer, a discount on everything on their website. LBL25 at jinkofishing.com is going to save you on those new 10 Cannon topwaters, the array of crankbaits that they have, maybe an all-spring buzzer, or what about a high roller rod? So much to choose from at jinkofishing.com. LBL25 is going to save you money, and let them know you are a low lifer. Express Boats, hang the daggum banner. The Bassmaster Classic winning original all welded aluminum bass catching machine. The X21 Pro is what I'm running, but they got the X19, they got the H20, the H18, they got bay boats, they got duck boats. They have a boat for any budget and any style. They've even got pontoons on the veranda pontoon side. Check them out, expressboats.com. Find a dealer near you, and I promise you, you go take a ride, you may be leaving with one. Express Boats, building excitement since 1966.
Damn these Biloxi blues, it happens every night.
Every old night.
And I ain't never met a riverboat dealer that could ever be a friend of mine.
Nope.
The summer heat never treats me kind, it leaves trouble on my mind. So I'm bidding farewell, putting in my notice, and I'll see you at another time. This highway does not know my name, and I don't care. No, I don't care. Heading my way for another place, and I got 3 good tires and a spare.
Right to the hook right here. Old Trocar.
Just a white line gypsy getting out of Mississippi with just enough gas to get there.
Low budget live, the not so live variety from the Low Budget Live Bar and Grill here in beautiful southern Middle Tennessee. Hot southern Middle Tennessee. The hot bar and grill. I remember watching a documentary one time on Leonard Skinner, one of my favorite bands ever. And they had a place that they practiced that Ronnie Van Zant would make them practice that they called Hell House. It was like this metal building. And he's like, we're going to practice till we get it right. And that's kind of what the bar and grill is right now. But that being said, I'm probably not going to get this podcast right. I'm probably going to not make everybody happy with it and come up with the next free bird staring at this camera. I'm probably not going to do that. So this is definitely Hell House right now, except we're not in Gainesville, Florida, 1970 or 60, whatever. Goodness gracious. All right. This is the podcast for Thursday, June the 26th. And you heard that right. 2 LBLs this week. Holy cow. Sound the alarm. 2 LBLs. But don't get excited. If you didn't watch Mondays, I'm going to give you a heads up again. There will be no Low Budget Live this coming Monday because I'm going to be in steady vacation mode. I mean, trying to catch a tarpon, kayak fishing with my dude Riderman. Just bought me a new kayak. Look forward to seeing how incredibly out of shape I am when it comes to that in the good old Florida heat. But planning on seeing some good friends, eating some good food, and not talking about bass fishing or boat parts for about 7 days. I will probably break that within about the first couple hours of the drive when I start talking bass fishing, calling all my buddies on the phone to take up time on the 8-hour drive. The boat part thing will be kind of easy to not talk about for a few days because that's work for sure. But looking forward to it. I also have a 42nd birthday next week, and not looking forward to that as much because I do feel really old these days. All right. In this second LBL of the week, we're going to be joined by a gentleman who calls himself the Average Fisherman. His guide business on Sam Rayburn Lake is the Average Fisherman Guide Service. He just won the most recent NPFL. He's a very interesting guy. He's a veteran. He served in the Army, and he was in the 82nd Airborne, just paratrooping, jumping out of planes, dude, in hostile environments. Ladies and gentlemen, he's going to join us right now here in the Sweatbox. Chad Marler. Well, all right, as promised, here he is. We have tracked the man down, not average anymore, which, by the way, you couldn't have set that up any better. Chad Marler, calling yourself the average fisherman and then winning a big tournament in your first season with the NPFL. It's got to feel pretty good. But Fat Cat, that helps with the social media there at the NPFL, he took off running with that, as did I.
To be honest with you, Luke, while you said that, I've named my guide services Average Fisherman #Chad Marler because, coming into this, after I got out of the military and I was a teacher for a little while and I was guiding on the side, I had so many God-loving Americans that worked Monday through Friday that don't have the time to get on the water, and they're wanting to get out there and learn. So, I was like, I told my wife, I said, we got to think of a name. They're like, there's so many people. It's like, Chad Marler Fishing or Chad Marler this. I'm like, I'm going to be unique,
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So I said, honey, I think I'm going to call my guide services, my page, Average Fisherman, because I want to tend to the every God-loving, working Monday through Friday American that considers himself an average fisherman. And when I did that, a lot of people, believe me or not, they on my truck route, they stop at the stoplights and they're taking pictures. They roll down their windows. They're like, dude, that is awesome. And I'm like, for me though, it represents, I love to teach people. Yeah. And that's how I got going with this. But so, yeah, that's a little bit of story about how the average fisherman, became a thing.
Yeah, I love it, man. And like you said, there are so many. I joke all the time about, and this is no offense to anybody that does this, because you kind of follow the crowd sometimes, but there are so many blah, blah, blah fishing pages out there, blah, blah, blah fish. Everybody, whether you're in high school or you're a pro, everybody's page at one point, they went to so-and-so fishing, and you do have to separate yourself. And I thought that was so genius, man. And whenever I talked about on the podcast this past Monday, can the average guy, because it brought that question into my mind, even though I know it's a little tongue in cheek for you to call it the average fisherman, but there has been so much talk this year. And I talked about that on Monday as well, about the quote unquote elite pros versus the NPFL pros and these guys that do it for a living. And dude, to see you come out with a win as we get into summertime, the folks at Gill Fishing have your back. They want you to be more comfortable, whether you're out there on the water, maybe you're spending all day at the ballpark. They can keep you cool. They can keep you dry. They've got shorts, sun gloves, sun shirts, and some of the best rain suits in the game at gillfishing.com. And the best part is they want you to save just for being a lowlifer, just for listening to this weed eater voice. LBL20 is the code you're going to use at checkout to let them know you're a lowlifer and save 20% at gillfishing.com. Pro Guide Batteries, ProGuideBatteries.com is where you can find everything they make, from their lead acid batteries to their AGMs to their new charger line and the all-new Alpha Series lithium batteries. Do not trust people that have not been in the battery industry for years and years and years. Like the folks from Pro Guide, they have 40 years of experience in the battery game. They are not a fly-by-night company. Check them out. ProGuideBatteries.com. Use code LBL10 at checkout to let them know you're a lowlifer and save 10%. Baitworks.com, bait-wrx.com, the exclusive online home for this little guy right here, the LOB Power Finesse Jig with that 3-aught Trocar hook, finer than frog hair skirt material, and it is a bass catcher. Do not just take my word for it. Get you some, try them out. I promise you, you will not regret it. And while you're there, check out everything Baitworks has to offer. They've got pretty much all you could ever need to go on a fishing trip. Dunkin-10, DUNKIN-10 will save you money at checkout, and let them know you are a lowlifer. And last but certainly not least, the folks from Old Boy Outfitters want you to say, "What's up, old boy?" Wear your heart on your sleeve. If you love hunting, if you love fishing, they are an outdoor lifestyle brand. T-shirts, shorts, sun shirts, really cool hats, a little bit of everything. oldboyoutfitters.com. You can use code OLDBOYLUKE, OLE boy Luke at checkout to save some cash. In that top 10, when you look down that list of names, I know it has to make it just that much more sweet, right? Just a little bit sweeter just to go, man, my first one. Every time you look at that shield, you look down through there and go, holy cow, bass fishing legends in the top 10.
Yeah, you know what? And you couldn't have said it any better than that. I mean, this is something that I would like to tell everybody watching. There's a difference between passion and obsession. When you start doing this at a professional level, you must be obsessed with being successful. When I get done with an event, okay, I don't come home and look at what I did well. I look at what I did wrong and how to improve to become better at the next event, because like we just said, like everybody really focuses on the elite guys there. And I'm going to tell you, every one of those guys fishing the NPFL, they'll take your money in a heartbeat.
No
and
doubt.
You cannot stumble in this league. If you stumble, you're going to fall and rake your face on the concrete like you're like 9-year-old riding your bike and your dad said, don't do that, right? So, looking at the names, and obviously I'm about to be 39 years old here soon. I grew up watching these guys. And when I got home Saturday morning, and I was looking at that NPFL shield, because I'm going to tell you right now, when I went to Eufala, I was coming back with that shield or I was coming back on it. I'm just going to tell you right now, I had a fire burning.
I saw you post that. Now, before we get to the rest of the story real fast, I wanted to ask you this, and that this is a perfect setup. When you said that, is it because you've had experience on Eufala? Is it because it's not far from home? Or was it just, hey, we're 4 events in and I've not got mine yet and I want one?
So, starting off the season, nobody knew who Chad Marler was. We went to Santee Cooper. I don't necessarily, and this is real talk, between me guiding full-time back home, I don't necessarily have the financial means all the time to go pre-practice. And that is really essential when you start doing this professionally. So coming into the league, I made things work where I could budgeted, be very, very smart. There's a lot of guys and gals that get into this and halfway through the season, they've burnt up their sponsor money. So I'm being smart about stuff, right? So we get to Santee Cooper, Luke. And I remember talking to you and Ken. I told you all day 3, it's going to hurt me with this cold front if it happens, I seen Upshaw up there and we were in a similar area. And when we come across each other, he's like, bro, how many you got? I said, I got 3. He's like, I've got 1. And I didn't have the experience on it like some of the other guys. And that goes a long ways. But you know what? We had an outstanding finish, very first professional event as a rookie. And you know what? I walked home with my head held high. Watching Jason Christie on stage and Hackney and those dudes and Hank Cherry. Look, Luke, I was sitting on day 3 takeoff. Well, it was a day 2 because we had a cancellation day 1. And I'm looking to my left and there's stone cold Jason Christie looking at me. And I look to my right and Hank Cherry's looking at me. And I'm like, whoa, this is a little spooky. I watch these guys growing up and now I'm sitting here with them. You know what? And I respect this, but I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you.
That's awesome, man.
And then we got to Norman. Norman took my lunch money. Norman was a tough event for everybody, brother.
Yeah.
And, we got to Douglas. I loved Douglas. I'd go back to Douglas. Okay. That was fun. I lost 3 fish day 3. That cost me a check. And I knew that, and if you guys, if you look at the live, Wes Logan made a comment about that at Eufala. He's like, sometimes it's just your day to lose fish. And Douglas was my event. So coming into Eufala, yes, I had history there. Eufala will humble you and break you down to your knees if you don't watch it. But when I was heading there, I was thinking to myself, I said, Chad, you told the NPFL you would earn this spot. You would earn your keep here. You need to show them what you can really do. And obviously, God and Jesus Christ have all the glory, because when it's meant to be, Luke, it's meant to be. You hear that in the fishing world a lot. And when I was going up there, I told my wife, when I left, she's like, you got that look in your eyes like before you went on deployment. I said, I'll see you up there on Wednesday. And I left. And I drove up there and I didn't really talk to anybody. I got in practice and my dad didn't say a lot to me. I didn't say a lot to Dad. We got to spend time on Father's Day, which was absolutely a blessing with the NPFL. Let me spend time with him. Okay. I had a mission. I was going to get that shield at Eufala. Now, with that being said, job's not done. We got 2 seasonal events going. I'm looking forward to doing St. Lawrence as long as it cools down. Please, God, let it cool down. But, we're going up there. You asked me that question, how's it feel? And I'll loop around and tell you. Luke, you always know deep down inside you can compete against guys. It's anybody's game when you go out there. But all the hard work, the obsession, that every night when I'm laying there in my bed dreaming about lifting a shield. And you know what? This is going to sound dumb. A lot of people are going to laugh about this, but I've always wanted to buckle up a major trophy in that seat, heading home in the passenger seat. And I got a picture and I'm going to frame it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
That's the post. It's like when you used to win the Super Bowl. They're like, I want to go to Disney World. You're like, where you just won the Super Bowl. That is the bass fishing thing. You have to strap it and drive it back home.
Yes. I was talking to Ken about that, and he's like, what are you going to do with it? Oh, we must strap it in that passenger seat, boy. And I'm going to ride it back to Texas, baby.
Right. That's awesome, man. Yeah. That's part of the dream, dude. That all the things that goes in that list of must do's when you win.
Yes. And you follow looking at when you look at the roster in the NPFL, I see diversity. I don't hear anybody mention that. I see diversity. I see guys that are legends there. I see guys, and I'm not talking about me. I see guys that have been on the trail for a couple of years with y'all, and they're right there. They're right there every time, and then I'm going to tell you what's the greatest feeling. And Luke, we talked about this before we come on. I sent an email to the NPFL staff. I've fished a lot of organizations, and we're not going to name any because that's just, you don't do that. I feel like I'm part of a family at the NPFL. That's why I chose the NPFL. I could have done the opens. I could have went to the invitationals. But I chose the NPFL because I see a family being built. And you haven't seen that since the old FLW days. You know that.
Yeah,
know that. You fished them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I come up there, this is what I love about you all. It doesn't matter if you're a big name and you've been doing it for a long time, or you're nobody like me. You guys treat everybody with the same mutual respect. And I love that about the NPFL. And I think the fans love it too, Luke. I really do.
Man, we've had a lot of positive energy from the fans this year in the fishing space. It's been really cool. The true fans of the sport, they seem to enjoy, what we're trying to do over there. And I'm, Chad, I'm mad at them for just now catching on. What took you so long? We've been doing this for 5 years. No, man.
You're right.
I'm grateful. And it's cool to me that even as it's kind of shifted to where it's at this year, with a lot more eyeballs, right? And a lot.
Oh, yeah.
The field has changed. And the field has changed every year. I'll say that. We've only got, I believe it's 17 or 18 guys that have fished all 5 years. Your Kevin Rogers, Luis Fernandez, Hunter Bogmans, Stu Martell, some of those guys that have been there for the entire time. And then we got guys that have been there 3 or 4 years. And then, but you have turnover. Every tournament trail like this, you tend to have turnover every year. So a lot of new faces this year, excluding the guys that everybody knows, the elite anglers that have came over, the legends of the sport that we're seeing. So it has definitely, there's a lot of new faces, but that feel for me is the same. And man, I've missed it because year one, I got to be on site. And so I got to actually feel that. And then, Cat and I have been in the studio in Wisconsin, but this year we're back on site, and man, it is the exact same. When I step out there for takeoff, it is the exact same feeling as when we were at Eufala in Alabama for 2021 for the first. It's just that every time, man. And I think about things like when we had to cancel day one and they were going to delay it.
Yes.
All just under that awning. Everybody's just, the entire field is just standing around almost like it's a meeting. Everybody's just bull crapping with each other, cutting up and carrying on. And they're messing with the tournament staff. Dude, it was awesome. Like moments that are what this sport's about for me. And always have been, because there's just so many great anglers and great people, great stories within the NPFL, man. And now you get to say you're one of them. You know what I mean? Like that. I read your email. and it got to me. I showed it to my wife last night.
Yes, I got you. I got you.
You did get me. And I said, that's why I want to be a part of this. This is why I have pushed so hard. This is why I have tried to help them in any way that I can for so long, regardless of we've had our issues, right? We've had people throw, we've had wrenches in the game plan, so to speak. And man, that's why I'm still here. It is emails like that and those storylines. But man, talk a little bit about the moment. So you had a couple moments on that final day on Friday. So talk about the moment though that you catch what you put in the catch track as a 7-pounder that ends up being an 8-pounder, dude. That's the first fish that comes across on our catch track. I'm assuming it's one of the first fish you caught. Talk about that moment and the feeling that came with it. Did it lead you to, oh, this is happening? This is it. Like talk about that situation.
All right. So first and foremost, I appreciate y'all trying to find me, get me a camera boat. I had zero reception up there. And I'm not afraid to tell everybody where I went. I actually seen Brandon Cobb later on day 2. So, when we talked about this and we'll get into this, but I abandoned day 1 and I ran up and I went all the way past Longtown up there. I went way up there. And I went to an area that, like we had talked about after day 1, I hadn't seen Luke since day 3 of practice. I don't know if it's dirty. I don't know if it's clean, but I do know one thing. I made that choice. Like we were talking about day 1, my original area, we had Buddy Gross down there, we had G-Man down there, and, Eufala is not a place that likes to just reload. And then you take the conditions, it was like, we come up 2 foot since the day 1 cancellation. And what's that do to your fish? A lot of them was spread out. Okay. So day 2, we get up there. Brandon Cobb's behind me. I've got it trimmed. I know Brandon Cobb's been fishing. We weren't in the same area, but we were going to a general area, and you know what I mean? You fish, you know what I mean by that. So we get up there. And there's another NPFL angler right where I want to start. Okay. You know what? I'm one of those guys that's old school fisherman. I'm going to be 39 soon, but I was raised in a manner of you don't pull up on dudes. You know what I mean? And I've learned over the years that you cannot be afraid to fish behind people, because if Luke's not throwing what Chad's throwing, it don't matter.
Exactly.
So I went ahead and I tried to be very curious. I went a lot further down and I was like, you know what? Let's get up here. Let's get to work. We got a job to do, and I fished for probably 10 minutes, didn't have a bite, which I got spoiled day 1 because second or third cast of the day, I caught a 422 and that'll spoil you real quick. And, so I was like, we need to stay positive. This was a mental grinder for this. And I went down the way and I actually had 3 fish. I didn't have any reception to put them in. Okay. So the 7 was my 4th fish already.
Okay.
So there I was, because I didn't want to get in trouble. I'm holding my cell phone up in the air, trying to get reception to put them in, and you know what I'm talking about, and I will put everything in that I possibly can. There may or may not be a lot of anglers that like to sandbag things. I'm just saying, like you play the game, right? So
yeah, a lot of them.
So, we had a limit together, and I remember turning and looking at, and we'll have the footage up, in a little while. But I remember looking at my camera, and I said, you know what, peeps, we're happy to have 8 pounds right now. And I can't tell you how tickled pink I am, because I want to go to Disneyland right now. I am tickled pink to have 8 because of the conditions, Luke. You know what I mean? It was so vastly changing.
Awful on the final.
Yes,
day. Awful.
It was. And there's something that we're going to talk about to keep in mind. And there's other anglers that were on live that talked about this and made the adjustment. So I hear, oh boy, fire up. And he leaves. And I'm like looking behind me. I don't see any boats coming. I don't see anybody coming, because you're very aware of what's going on around you out there, because you do have anglers that rotate. And I want to rotate back before somebody come to that. Oh, yeah. So I'm waiting like 10 minutes and I'm getting antsy. I'm like, all right, let's just go ahead and idle. We get back up there. I was fishing a section in practice. I'd caught a heavy 3 off a cluster of oak trees. Now down here at Sam Rayburn, we have cypress trees, here in Southeast Texas. You've been here, you know how that works. And, when you have the water levels coming up like they were, okay, there's one type of structure that they will always hold to, and it's those bigger knees on those trees, those root balls. And I remember, Luke, I didn't even flick that spinnerbait, that Hilda Normal Blade spinnerbait I was using that was made specifically on my request. I'd have to go back and look at the video footage, but I didn't flick it probably 60 feet into between those chunks. And I was reeling it out, and it just started loading, and my drag just started that wonderful sound fluorocarbon makes.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And it was just like the drag. And I was like, oh God, what do we got? Because there was a lot of carp, there was a lot of drum, there's a lot of trash fish all over the place. I mean, I'm sure the other anglers seen all the gar that were up. So, but then when Gina come up and showed me her eyes, I said, dear God, please don't let this fish come off. God, please don't come off. And it did a jump again. And I was like, please stop that, please. And for anybody that's ever been in that position, you were sweating bullets. And then when she jumped again for the 3rd time, I had her pegged. Then I calmed down. So let's just let her fight.
Then, yeah.
When I got her in, I started shaking after I got in line. Well, I tried to weigh her, and she was showing 7 something. I said, well, girl, you ain't getting called on this one. Like, we ain't going to call you today. I know that.
No float.
No float, no nothing. You going in a live well. We're going to put you in the box. And then I sat down, Luke, and my hands started shaking. And you know what? I'll quit bass fishing the day I lose that feeling. I'll quit. I swear I'll quit. And I said, I looked at the camera and I leaned in and I gave the camera a kiss, and I was pumped. And I looked, I said, if we can call those 1 pounders we got a chance to dance for the bands today, peeps. But we have to stay focused right now. It's early. And you remember me telling you, this, you better catch your big girl before 10 o'clock.
Yep.
And when that moment happened, Luke, I just kept fishing, and then you have to be really composed because of the company that we have on the day 1 leaderboard. I mean, dude, we got Tommy Biffle, a legend in himself at Oklahoma. We got Brandon Cobb. We got Wes Logan that is fresh off just hitting people like, hey, give me your lunch money today. I mean, he's fresh off back to back. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then, we've got G-Man that's in the mix. You know what I mean? When you see names like that up there, you cannot stumble. You stumble, they're going to drag you all up and down like the movie Troy. It's coming.
Yeah, that's it.
So I picked up, and I'm going to answer your question. I picked up, ran right across like I did in practice. Second cast caught 323. And I thought, that's when I turned around, Luke. And I sat down and I was looking at my scale. And I was like, boys are going to have to cash in today. We're going to make you work for it today. And I felt that confidence. You know what I mean? Like, I was confident going up there, but then it was becoming, you don't want to get arrogant, because coming from Sam Rayburn, I've weighed in 26 pounds for homeboy behind me weighed in 31, and the guy behind him weighed 34. I went first at 3rd in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
So, but with that, I had that level of, I was like, Chad, we could do this. I was talking to myself, and if I'm going to release it, my media guy, he does my videos. I don't know why. I just started singing She Lost That Love and Feeling out of nowhere, because I was trying to cope with my emotions. Okay. Because you've been out there fishing, you get lonely out there. You know what I mean? I just started singing, and Luke, I loosened up. And you know what? And you've been in those positions. I started fishing. That's when it got deadly. Making the cast, the flicks, the pain went away. And everybody's like, oh, fishing's not tough. Hey, I'm here to tell you, you look at my CAT scan after jumping out of planes for so long, it don't look pretty. I settled down and I just started working. I was at work and I was in a zone that can only happen when you have that chance.
Stars are lining up.
The stars will line up. And I'll go back to this. God has perfect timing, and I've been angry at my life, not understand a lot. Like, why is this happening to me? Why is this? And I knew that day, Luke, that God was giving me a chance. Hey, you got a chance, homie. You got to execute, though. It's on you to make it happen. And then it got to like 11:30. And I was like, I'm not going to lie to you. I was ready just to come weigh him. I was ready, dude. Because I knew that it was going to be tough. And about 1:30, I seen Brandon come around the corner. And, I was like, well, Brand's leading. I'm going to try to stay out of the way a little bit. But, guys at this level have mutual respect for each other. I looked at Brand and I went to turn the boat and Brandon went like this. And I was like, okay, and Brandon, I will across. So then I kept fishing. Now, I caught nothing but white bass behind Brandon because I'm pretty sure he plucked everything he had. Because when you fish behind anglers like that, there's not going to be many places. You're looking for the spider webs. And you know what I mean by that? You're looking for spider webs in areas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, that feeling that I had, Luke, job wasn't done. And I had to control my emotions. Job was not done. I had to get to the weigh-in. We had to get back safely and effectively. And I stayed and stayed and stayed. And I kept chancing it. And when I seen Brandon leave, and I was like, all right, we got to go. Like, Brandon's right. We got to get out of there because the wake boats up the river up there were gnarly. And then coming back, people don't know. Us anglers don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
we can't see anything. We don't know. You all are watching this, and I know darn well when it goes off of live, y'all watching that cat tracker. I know. And
no, we can't. Well, they cut it off, so when live goes off, it stops updating. I have no clue.
Listen, you might not, but in the trailer, I know they do.
I get texts, man. I get DMs from people. Hey, man, like they got a buddy that's doing what, dude, what's going on? And people think I'm lying. I'm like, I promise you, I do not know. I've never known in 5 years. I've never known. Unless
there's only a few select people that do.
Yeah, unless say, oh, I saw Chad, and yeah, dude, he's got him. He's got him. And he said, and you start kind of doing math, but that's the only time I ever know. I sincerely find out every time, which I enjoy, to be honest, when everybody else finds out.
Oh, yeah. And coming back, as an angler, you're running the numbers in your head all the time. You're running the numbers.
Yeah, you have to.
And you have to. And you with you saying that, it tells me a lot. Like it changes how you approach things.
Mm-hmm.
It changes the dynamics of what you're going to do.
Yep.
When I was coming back, we got to the bridge, or shut down idling. I seen Brandon stop on the riprap. Now Brandon took off behind me day 2. Day 1, he was in front of me, reverse order and stuff. I was like, why would Brandon stop there? And you start assuming, does Brandon got him? Does he not got him? Does he not have a limit? And my heart starts fluttering. I'm like, you know what? We're going to put it in the trailer. The good Lord's blessed us. It's going to lie where she lies today. And if I'm in second, third, or fourth, you know what? I'm going to walk away with my head held high like I did at Santee Cooper, because every one of these NPFL anglers can fish. I'll say it again. Every one of them can fish. And really, man, and y'all said this, it was a lot of people's games in the top 10. No, really, the way it was fishing, it was tight. I mean, you got Hunter that had 14 pounds, and there were so many 14-pound stacks. And I don't think personally the anglers were downplaying practice, Luke. That practice was tough for everybody. I mean,
of course, the showed out on day 1, and the field showed out. Like that was way more than anybody expected, including you guys.
Everybody,
for the most part. I mean, when you had 16, you probably thought, hell, I may be leading this thing. You know what I mean? Like
I did.
I mean, for everybody that I talked to that had more than 15 are like, man, these guys smashed them today. Are you kidding me? There were 50 something pounds, 10 pounds.
I know.
I mean, it was nuts, man. There were some folks that got their feelings hurt on day 1, thinking it would be tougher than it was weight wise, but day 2, it reared its ugly head. I mean, you had guys like a Bill Lowen who he had one the second day and plummeted in the standings. You had a lot of that happen on day 2, which makes
let's talk about that.
More impressive.
Let's talk about that. Let's analyze that, right? Because I love analyzing stuff. All right, so if you remember, when we talked after day 1, and you said it, the other day on your podcast, you're like, why would you abandon your first area? Okay, sometimes you got to feel that when you got that heavy of hitters fishing in all one area together, guys don't miss much. They're plucking every fish. Okay, so I knew day 2, if you remember us talking, I said, it's going to be a lot tougher tomorrow. There's a lot more in the crowding area because a lot of the guys that were in the top 10 were fishing the cleaner, relatively cleaner water. Okay. And I knew the crowd I had down there with me. And I just had to hope nobody hit that little bitty stretch, which the odds of nobody hitting that was like rare, slim to none. But once again, if you're not throwing what another angler's throwing, you've got to have confidence in yourself. You've got to be confident to fish behind people in these leagues. Cause I'm going to tell you what's cool. We all go out there and practice. Guys, I have groups and we, guys talk.
Yeah.
But some reason, like I don't talk to G-Man or those guys, I'm a little bitty guy and I understand it, and I'm trying to prove my worth. But all of a sudden you look up and you see all these names in an area and none of us talk to each other, but we're all fishing the same thing, figuring it out the same way. And that's what's so cool about fishing, man. Guys are going to figure it out. So that's why I made that move day 2, Luke. I mean, it was a risk it for the biscuit, but I also felt really good because when I was up there day 3 practicing in my area on day 2, I was watching to see how many anglers went over there. Not a lot of them did. A lot of them ran to the back. I was fishing a stretch that was more main lake-ish. Now, I'm going to tie you back to what we were talking about when I said those anglers made adjustments. If you listen to G-Man and Wes Logan and those guys talking about how the bigger fish, the better fish quality were setting up on the flooded bushes you couldn't see.
Yeah.
And everybody watching, all the either young anglers or inspiring anglers, when the water comes up on a lot of lakes, you got shallow and deep fish. I teach this guiding. You got shallow and deep all the time. Your shallow fish will eventually go up, right? Your deep fish will pull up. But Eufala, taking the dynamics that we were in, it dropped 1.5 foot after day 1 with cancellation and come up over 2 foot. So these fish are used to it. But they were laying on the original flooded bushes in practice still. And when you had to slow up, there's no forward facing sonar, peeps. I didn't even have my 360 on. Why? There's no reason to have it on and peeing in that water anymore with anglers going by. Let's be a silent B2 cruising through. You had to trust the process. And, I told you I'll explain this more later. I told you I was working my spinnerbait different.
You did. And
I told you that.
Elaborate to Ken and I. You were like, I'm working my spinnerbait different. And I'm like, okay. And you were very confident in that statement. I'm like, he's got something.
So, this is really important when you're fishing behind. Traps in January are a huge deal here at Rayburn. Yep. And I teach my customers like, hey, a lot of guys are throwing the BB traps, but I throw a 1 knocker. Okay. I come back with a knock. It's different. So a lot of anglers, because guys watch each other in practice. We all watch guys see each other, yada, yada, yada. A lot of casts, chunk and wind, straight retrieve. Okay. I was working my spinnerbait like a jerk bait and it'd come out. I was burning it over the bushes, but I was popping it, Luke, and I was causing it to pulse and those blades flash. And when the bites got tough, it got me a couple extra key bites. They come up out of that bush. Now, you can always say you can't you can't count the ones you don't catch. I had a lot of 3-pounders come up on day 2 that just didn't get it. They come up and they swatted it. And I have no doubt in my mind because they were sitting in those underwater bushes and they've seen baits come by, straight retrieve, straight shoot. But it's like a spoon. If you've ever thrown out a 6.5-inch spoon on some ledge fish and you're popping it, there's 2 ways you do it. You either pop it, flutter it, or you reel it real fast and hit your butt and it goes back in their face. It was almost like it was going back in their face with me popping that spinnerbait. And I was working it hard. My left arm, I'm pretty sure I got tendonitis from Sandy Cooper still, and it ain't never healed. But, I was really, and the heat, it's just like, I ain't no weenie, but I'm telling you, like we talked on the phone, those backwaters, it was so far up in the woods and there was no wind. It was just, a jacuzzi tub back there. Not one I'd want to swim in, but I'm just saying. Yeah. So, that kind of ties into like, going to that day 2 and just being different, working it different and looking for cobwebs. You've seen cobwebs and what everybody's like, what's Shad mean by cobwebs? Well, if I see cobwebs, ain't no angler putting their bait in there. That sounds stupid, but that fishing the FLW tour, what that means, bud. Nobody's been over there playing with it.
That's right.
And what it does is it gives you a level of confidence to settle. I told y'all I didn't burn but half a tank of gas in this event. And here's why. Now, hey, hats off to G man, because I'm gonna tell you what, he had that bird on the drain plug when he was running past me day one. He went past me and he gave me this, and I was like, and he just like he was sending it, you know. But that's G
Sends it
man
all.
style.
Sends it always. He
Oh,
never.
dude, it always
He's
is.
always
But
rolling.
what do I mean by that? You know, Scott Canterbury and I passed each other on day one. Scott's like, come on, just keep fishing, keep fishing. I was like, okay, you know, we went around each other. Scott caught a fish behind me. I caught a fish right behind Scott, and we laughed because, you know, there were so many fish that were in Eufaula areas. They were so scattered. If you didn't hit them within a couple feet with the water clarity,
Yes, the right angle.
it did not matter. Didn't matter, bud. You know, so yeah, you know, that's catching that 8-pounder day two. You know, I mean, that is a Oklahoma fat girl. I mean, that is, you don't do that every day. And that's when I knew that the good Lord was giving me that chance. And he's like, Jed, it's on you to go to put the rest together, bud. You know, and you know, hats off to G Man, dude. I'm telling you right now, like when he went up on stage and I got to watch it, because you know, like everybody watching, we can't watch the lives in the events. You know, we're not allowed to do that. It's against the rules. So I got home and I sat down and I seen the way G Man reacted. And I'm going to come on live right now. I'm going to tell everybody, Jared Swindle, if it was for ounces, would go down as one of the best fishermen ever. 2 Angular of the Year titles, you know, like look at his career of how many top threes that man has finished.
No
And
doubt.
for me to stand up there with him and go toe to toe, I think that's almost an internal feeling for me, almost better than winning a check. I'm just going to say it's right there because it's not about the money. It's about the legacy, you know, and going against guys like that I grew up watching, and you're standing with them on stage now and you're shaking their hand and you're competing against them. It also creates a level of respect. You can't stumble. I'll go back to that. You stumble, those boys are going to rip the rope out of your hand. That's how good they are, you know? So, man, staying on stage with a legend like that, you know, and I was looking on the hill. Luke, I asked the weighmaster, I said, hey, did Tommy Biffle weigh in? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, did Wes Logan weigh in? Yeah. And I knew Cobb was like, you run the numbers. I
That's
said,
it.
oh God, Cobb's got to come in still, you know? And it just, Saturday morning, I'm gonna say it. I ain't scared to say it. I don't cry. I've only cried a couple times in my life. I cried in my kitchen. Looking at that shield. I don't like, it's not even about, it's that shield. Homie, it's that shield. Here's on my kitchen countertop. I mean, it's sitting on the fireplace right now. Kind of like, you know, you've seen the Christmas Story, the sexy leg lamp. My wife's like, when are you going to put it back in your fishing room? I'm like, well, I mean, I kind of like watch, I just kind of look at the fireplace. So, but dude, Luke, it was an honor, man. You know, like, and it could have been easily been me on the hot seat and Swindle come up there and knock me off, or Wes Logan or like KJ Queen, or, you know, like Nick Brown and all these guys, you know, it could have been easily switched. I've been there. So for me, it was an absolute honor in the whole situation. And it didn't set until Saturday I got home, bud.
Oh, I'm sure, because there's so much adrenaline, there's so much emotion, you're
Yep.
exhausted from fishing in those conditions for a week. I can imagine when it really hit you was that Saturday morning, man, and you're like, oh, this trophy is in my house. This shield is here with me. I did actually do this, because it probably seemed like a dream. Like you said, it's a dream come true. It's what we all strive for, and whatever we are obsessed with in life, right? You want to be the best. You want to succeed at it to the utmost of your abilities. And dude, you did it, man. You did it. And now you're 37th in the Angler of the Year race.
Yep.
Top 40 is going to go to the championship next year. So you're in that with two events to go in your first season. What do you think about heading to smallmouth country, other than they're in a heat wave right now? But obviously being I believe you said you're from Missouri originally, right?
Yes,
Missouri
sir.
originally, but then you're an East Texas boy now. Do you have a lot of smallmouth experience?
So, luckily last year I had a sponsor. We flew up and we went fishing at like into Canada and fishing smallmouth.
Oh, nice.
And, you know, so the difference is, and like, you know, not a lot of people talk about it, but like there's lakes that they eat the marabou, and there's lakes that they eat, you know, like drop shots and stuff. No, I've never been in St. Lawrence, but going up to St. Lawrence, we're gonna be in one of those elite dudes' backyards, and I'm telling you right now, he gonna catch them. Okay, but going up there, here's what I'll tell you: job's not done. Like you win a shield, you win money. Guess what? After Saturday, I was already back to business. Like truthfully, I was on guided trips today already, back to work. But you know what? Job's not done. It's short lived. We have a job to do for 2 more. And looking at stuff, jumping to the angle of your points. I think for me, I've said this, and I talked to you at Santee about this. My goal is to be consistent this year, consistency, and trust the process. And, jumping up like that as a rookie, I've never been to St. Lawrence, but you know what? I'm going to go break it down like I do everywhere else. I'm going to feel it out. And, I guess I got to decide, are we going to make that 98-mile run or are we not? You know what I mean? You got to make those decisions. That's the decisions that are going through my head already, because I'll tell everybody, I don't get overwhelmed. I really don't. But after winning a shield, everything that's coming with it, like we were talking on the phone, like the interviews, this, and this, and, family time. Like I told you earlier, I was like, hey, let's do it tonight. You're going to go fishing with your boys. You go fishing with those boys tomorrow. That's what it's about. And, I'm looking forward to getting to St. Lawrence, I'm going to say, if you don't have 22 pounds a day, you're not going to get a check there. You ain't going to get bottom place check with 22 pounds a day. You're going to have, it's going to be tight. I think you're going to see that 22 to 25 play games again. And you all thought there was drama on Eufala. St. Lawrence is going to have it, and you don't have forward-facing sonar introduced to this. So that changes the dynamics.
Yeah. Biggest wild card of the year because so many tournaments up there have been dominated with forward facing.
Yes.
Since its introduction. And now we're going back to where you got to read the current. You got to try to figure out where they're at without it, whether that's 360 side imaging, 2D, or using your eyes, whatever the case will be. And then you have like you just mentioned, we're going out of Messina. We're going out of almost Canada, the end of the dang river there, pretty much as far as you can go beyond where the elites go when they're out of Waddington. We're a long way past that, but 98 miles to Ontario. And I've already talked to a lot of anglers that were, matter of fact, when we were under the little shelter, there were several coming up to Sean Mulhall asking where the cutoff was. How far can we go? And I'm like, oh, you guys are thinking about this. I mean, several, so that's going to be a big factor in this. It's going to be, obviously it's going to be a smash fest. It's the St. Lawrence River.
Oh, yes.
Catch them. But I think there's so many variables in this, whether it's Angler of the Year race, whether it's just the overall tournament, who's going to do well and who's not. This one is, everybody loves going up north. It's going to be a great time, but this one's going to be interesting, man. I had really all Douglas, Eufala, and St. Lawrence were my 3 out of the 6 that I really had circled as kind of a question mark. What's going to happen depending on lake conditions. I feel like we dodged a major bullet at Douglas because it was high.
Oh, yes.
Fish were biting. Eufala, we dodged a bullet in the sense that we were even able to have it. Okay.
Oh, that's fact. That's fact.
And then that the lake and the NPFL anglers like yourself performed there flawlessly. Like it's incredible what the lake kicked out for us under those conditions. And then the St. Lawrence without forward facing and going out of Messina is a big question mark for me. How that one will play out for everybody is going to be interesting.
I think that, looking at it from a standpoint of all the anglers, if you have a good finish at St. Martin, Logan Martin, like when we get down there, like, we're going to fish in the Coosa River, like you're going to see a lot of Eufala fishing. You really are. You're going to see a lot of that getting after it, head down, covering the water, and it's going to be a grinder, but I like those grinders, man. It's anybody's game, but St. Lawrence, I think in the Angler Year race, like it could be anybody's game. You could slip up and win one, another one, and it jumps you up there. But for the top 5 guys, most of the time by this point in the season, if you're not in that top 6 roughly in the Angler Year points, you're facing a battle. Yeah. So I think fans have to look at that top deal. Who's in that top run that is going to be able to catch him there and then keep that momentum going, and depending on the heat, I got to say that depending on the heat, that's going to play a lot too. But, as an angler, you mentioned that you have to ask yourself, is that 98-mile run going to be worth it? You got to stop and get gas. I know if I run 55 and how many miles to the gallon I'm getting at 55 miles an hour, you got to hit a marina on the way down. But if you get out there, Luke, and the wind is coming from the south, or you get out there and they ain't cooperating, you just took like an hour plus off your run time. You got 2 hours, down, hour plus back, right? Are anglers going to risk it for the biscuit? Now you get down there real quick. We've seen it. We've seen in other tournaments over the years, guys make that run. And then all of a sudden they have 2 hours and they've got 25 plus and they're already putting back, because there's not a lot of fish time. But I think what's going to be interesting is I still think guys are going to attach them to the rivers. I think what's going to be interesting, how far are anglers going to go down to the mouth, depending on what they're doing. Are they still spawning? Or are they not spawning? That's going to be the big factor. Are they done?
No doubt. I can't wait, man. I get antsy about going up there. The only regret I have is I'm not getting to pull my express and do some fishing after you guys are done. Cause I love that. Cause we have ICAST right after. So I have to turn around and fly back home. All right, real quick. Let's you were a paratrooper. I have to hear this. I've read this. I know you said you made a post that was very cool. You and John Branch having a moment on.
Yes.
You said, man, this is what I miss about the military the most.
Yeah.
But so you were 82nd Airborne. You were a paratrooper. When you're talking about, you got to be confident and you got to be obsessed and you got to keep your head in it. Well, I would say you're the most dangerous man on the NPFL in the league, because what rattles a dude that jumps out of airplanes for a living?
That chute not opening, girl. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's what will rattle you. But no, real talk though. What everybody's seen, that camaraderie that John and I have, and Josh Watkins, I got to say him because he's the other Army guy, and Upshaw stands there with us. Like we all talk, and we get to saying stuff and he laughs at us, but it's, I don't miss running around cutting grass with a pair of scissors because Sergeant Major said, go get it done. I'm like, well, I don't have a motor. He's like, figure it out. I'm like, okay, but that camaraderie I miss so much. I really do. If John or Josh were up on the stage and I was kicking rocks, like, dude, you can get the same reaction out of me, because John and I never served together. John was airborne too at one point. And, it's about the understanding of each other. Everybody knows Brad, Brad was a military dude and it's the mentality of it, because we can talk to each other a certain way and people that would be standing outside of that watching, like, why are they talking to each other like that? Do they not like each other? No, it's a different lingo. You know what I mean? When we talk to each other and, going in the military was one of the best things I could have ever done. I'll put it to you like this. It's full of triumphs and challenges, just like fishing professionally, Luke. It's full of triumphs and challenges. And there's going to be a lot of times that there's a lot of failures, but you learn from that. So those mental grinders, I'm good with. I'm sitting out there naked and afraid in the drop zone, like pulling security. Like I ain't seen water in 4 days, and I'm sipping on the Camelback. I got a little bit left, but, when I first was going to join, my parents were against it. And I'm going to tell this story on live. My parents were against it. I always wanted to go in the military and serve my country. Why? Because, I can see a flag outside my door, outside my window right here, right now, my American flag. It was something about the freedom for every God-loving American. And I'm going to tell you, every time the NPFL plays the national anthem, I don't care where I'm at, I tear up because it means so much to me. And, I share that with John and them, that mutual feeling, and I tell you right now, if John and them, like, it'd be crazy. Like, hey, if you gave us a task and we had to go clear a building or something, I have no doubt we could do it together because you work as a team there. And that's what I love about the NPFL. It's all about family, man. Like if I needed help and I called, somebody that, or I said, hey, I've never seen you. We never talked. They would take care of me. And that's what the Army's about. That's what the military's about. And jumping out of planes was awesome. I think the best way to put this is, you got 2 choices when that door opens on the plane. When I went through jump school, either you got, like when I went through, it's either you got out or they Ranger kicked you in the back and you went out anyway. So make that choice. Okay. So I chose to go out myself because I wasn't going to be a weenie, you know. I'm like, I'm going to go out head first. But man, I'm gonna be honest with you. I still get that heart fluttering when I see it on, like, see guys jump out of planes on TV. Like when they show them on the plane, I was good when I was in the air, but when I was on the bird, I used to tell the guy behind me, "Do not ride my pack tray. If you ride my pack tray and we get tangled, when we get to the ground, you're not gonna have any teeth." I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, and my wife would tell you, if you ever talk to my wife, I've calmed down a lot. It doesn't seem like it, but I've calmed down a lot. But you see me and John on stage, it come out between us.
Oh,
It came out,
yeah.
you know, and it's a different feeling, man. And
So fraternity sorts too, right? I mean, you guys know what you go through together. You know what I mean?
yes, yeah. We embrace the suck.
That's
We
it.
embrace the suck, man. And when I go to events like that, I'm just like you heard you totally saying I was singing that love and feeling, you know, on out there. I was embracing the suck, dude. You know, I mean, it was hot. I looked like I peed my pants, but I promise it was sweat, you know, and I embraced it. And, you know, coming to the NPFL, like when I got out of the military, I struggled to find purpose. I started teaching. I found purpose teaching. And I felt that commitment again in life. And then I started guiding and I felt that purpose in teaching people. And then when I got to the NPFL, man, I felt that commitment, purpose with the family that is being built there, you know, because I mean, like you walk up and talk to Hackney and, you know, Jared and all those guys, but they treat you with mutual respect, you know, and man, I've said that before. Like it reminds me of watching the FLW days, man. I tell you what, the NPFL is going to be something that fans need to watch out there because it's growing, and it's growing because everybody has a sensual mutual respect, and we want to see everybody be successful. You know, hey, don't get me wrong, everybody's there to take your money. Like hands down, we got work to do. It's a job, but you know the work that you and Fat Cat do. You know, and you talk about the English. No. Well,
let's not bring him into it.
You know, Fat Cat, you know, seizes the moment. You know what I mean?
He's my dude. I just have to give him all the crap I can.
Oh, I like giving Fat Cat trouble all the time. I'm like, hey, don't be talking about being alive now, you know. But you know, in the NPFL staff, I said this on stage, and you know, I sent an email to y'all. You know, this win that I have, this trophy is just as much as mine as it is at every staff member at the NPFL. Because without the hard work, dedication, and commitment that the NPFL staff does, I ain't never been on a trail before. When I backed down at Sandy Cooper and nobody knew who Chad Marler was, when I had that in my email for y'all, somebody jumped in my truck and said, "I got you, brother." Backed my truck down, I went, parked it, and I was like, whoa. Like, is this what you all do here?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you all got to get right? You know what I mean? Like, it's
you got any biscuits?
Yeah, you know, and dude, that's why I love the NPFL. You know, because man, there's like what you said, us under that awning, dude. That's what fishing's about, bud.
Yeah, man.
We were all up there talking that morning and joking. And Lightning was laughing. I'm like, you know, Brad's stressed out of his mind, pulling his hair out. We're teasing him, and he's like, "I'll wring y'all's necks," you know. But dude, the NPFL is the next big thing. I'm gonna say it. It is. That's what I feel like being there. You know, so thank you all. Thank you to, you know, you, Luke, and thank you to Fat Cat and Ken and all of the staff at the NPFL. Because if y'all didn't gut it out for the 5 years you've been gutting it out, hey, Chad Marler, Average Fisherman, would not be on this stage. It would not be sitting on Luke Duncan's podcast. I've watched it for a long time, and I'm gonna tell you that's another bucket list thing, Luke, that I get to check off. I'm like, dude, I got to be on Luke's podcast. Like, hell yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate your service. Because I'm one of those cowards, man. I need the Chad Marlers of the world to protect the American dream because, you know, nobody wants me jumping out of play. I'd get to the edge and piss my pants, and that would be that.
Nah, I'd kick you out. I'm like, I told you go, Luke.
You probably would. You would probably have to. I'm not a heights guy at all. But, Chad, you're anything but average, brother. I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
Congrats again to you and your family, and I look forward to seeing you in New York.
Hey, man, I'm looking forward to getting to St. Lawrence, man. That St. Lawrence River, it's special.
No doubt about it. It's going to be a fun one. Thanks, dude.
Thanks. I appreciate you, bud.
That's all she wrote with Chad Marler, the NPFL champ from Lake Eufala. And as you can see there, Chad likes to talk like I do. We could probably do a 4-hour podcast, Chad and I together. I told him he's made for it. We're going to have to do another one of these days. He's got so many stories, man, that I wanted to get to, and we will. We definitely will. His story needs to be heard. Very, very eccentric guy, very interesting guy, and a focused and determined guy. And I think it's such a cool lesson to just hear kind of his path in life and then to have your dreams come true. I don't know. It's very inspiring, and I appreciate him sharing it with us low lifers. Hope you enjoyed that. Again, no podcast this coming Monday because I'm going to be laid up getting a sunburn on my dad bod. Okay. That's what's coming this next week. Hope you're all doing well out there and that you have a great 4th of July week. Some of y'all probably off work like I am. A lot of places shut down the week of the 4th of July. If you are, live it up, enjoy it. Go catch a fish, lay by a pool, get in a creek, whatever. Stay cool out there. I'll take y'all out with some Biloxi Blues. I appreciate y'all. See y'all in a couple weeks.
Jacksontown to Tupelo.
Stay away from riverboat gamblers, dealers, whatever the line is that I wrote.
Spanish moss, a Civil War ghost. Well, I'm gonna leave them in the past. Any direction, Lord, I'll be fine. It don't matter east or west. North, south, wherever the wind blows, I'm leaving those burdens at rest. This highway, it does not know